Hey guys, welcome to the unbox video of the XUAV Sky Surfer. This is You might notice something over there in the corner. If you haven't been with me for too long, or if you haven't seen most of my videos, you might not know this, but I got started flying radio controlled with drones, and then my uncle took me to a park and I saw a slow stick flying on goggles. And when I saw the guy flying on goggles, I thought, man, I can do that. So I went and got a slow stick and I learned to fly it, and then I started sticking cameras on things with a friend, help from a friend in Arizona, and he kind of got me started with some of the tricks of the trade, getting clean video signal with tools like that Fat Shark power filter. And next thing you know, I had a little miniature, kind of like a mini distance plane using other tools like I think that's Bijoli. That's a stabilizer with return to home, and this airplane is a copy of what I'd call my first maybe mid-range plane, or let's call it just beyond line of sight plane. That'd be a good way to put it. Now, unfortunately, I lost that plane, and it was way back in the very beginning before I started flying distance. And one thing I remember about that plane is I always had a nice time flying it, and I always wanted to take it out to the field. Because it was fun just to chuck this little guy and, get it up in the air and just go get my goggles on and just tool around. And it's what you call proximity FPV. So I'm going to take a departure from my normal pattern of doing an unbox and then a build review and then a maiden. And what I'm going to do in this setup is I'm going to spend a little more time going through the build. And I'm going to make this a demonstration on how to get started in proximity FPV. And the reason I want to do that is because, honestly, the long range stuff, there's a time and a place for that. And where I came from in the desert, I don't have any problems with people going out there and flying till their heart's content. I see guys that do, the 15, 20, 30 mile flights over completely wooded areas or farmland. Honestly, I could care less about that kind of thing. I had a lot of fun doing it. And when I say I could care less, I mean, I don't care that people do it. But the reality is, for most of us, or probably many more of us, is that I no longer live in an area where that's feasible. So the next best thing for me is proximity. And a little plane like this is fun to do that with because, honestly, if you've got a little return to home system like that, you can just take the plane, toss it out in the field, and just have fun. And if you lose video, hit the return to home and it comes back to you. So I want to get back to it because I do remember having a great time with this airplane. It was relatively simple to set up. It's a decent little flyer. You can have a lot of fun with speed or efficiency. So anyway, I got my goggles back out and I almost feel like that's my Batman mask or something, man. It's been, I've done a little FPV, but it's been a while since I really spent time wearing those. And before I moved to Florida, you can check with some of my buddies. That's all I did. I occasionally went to the park just to hang out with people, but I was way, way, way into the FPV stuff. So I'm going to get back into it a little bit, and I'm going to do it with proximity flying. So let's get through the unbox real quick, and I'll walk you through some of the build elements I'm going to use and why I chose them, and then we'll put it away for this section. And when I start on the build, I'll be doing more of the hands-on demos with the build. One other thing I'd like to say, and I'm going to do a little experiment here, is I'm going to be upgrading the video format to use 4K video, and I've also made a little bit of an investment in my field camera. I know the one that I've been using is actually a Runcam 2, and that's a decent camera, but I've decided to step it up a little bit and go with a GoPro Hero 5. And I'm hoping what that'll do is give me the ability to use some 4K format with some optimization on the video stabilization and some better sound quality. So that's kind of what I'm aiming. Yeah, so anyway, be on the lookout for some improved capabilities when I put my videos together, because I want to step up the resolution. I know the Hero 5 has very good noise handling capabilities, and it's got some image stabilization that should help with the quality of my videos. One thing I don't think it's going to be able to help me with is the zoom. When I'm flying, I cannot do that, unfortunately. So we may still have to struggle through that. I'll do what I can, but honestly, when I'm wearing a hat cam, there's not much I can do about the zoom. Anyway, all right, so that's enough tangential information. Let's get right into the unbox. I'll start with a vertical stabilizer. Hey, at least this time there's no monocoat, so I've got nothing to say about that. These hinges, I will use hinge tape. I will spread that out and use hinge tape. I don't fly these airplanes particularly aggressively, so I don't really feel the need to cut the hinges or cut the control surface off and hinge it with either a CA or a plastic pinned hinge. I just don't feel the need to do that, but I will add some hinge tape just because I've seen on EPO, I've seen these types of hinges come apart. So I will be doing that. So the vertical stabilizer, this is just molded EPO. Oh, and by the way, I didn't mention, I got this airplane from Value Hobby. You can find them out there. They're on eBay. I think General Hobby in California sells them. Value Hobby sells them with a decent shipping rate. They're out there. You just got to look for them. I got this from Value Hobby, I think, for $39 plus a little bit of money in shipping. Okay, there's a horizontal stabilizer. Really not a lot to see here. These things, they've got the molding process down pat. So that everything, what I'm really looking for here is damage. And while I can't say the Chinese are as good at packing as Great Plains is or as E-Flight is, it was sufficient. It did the job and looks like everything arrived undamaged. Here's the wing half, and from a cord standpoint, about a hand. John's relative measurement there, got about a hand. And I know that this plane has a super, super light wing loading. In fact, a friend of mine, Peter, in Scottsdale, hopefully you're watching, Peter. Peter came out to the field one time with one of these, and he had he's German, so he's very much into engineering efficiency, and his was super light. I mean, super light, and he did a lot of proximity FPV with his, and that's another one. He got me kind of missing this plane, but anyway, super light wing loading. You don't need a huge cord on this plane, and the ailerons, from my recollection, they were more than sufficient for the airplane, so no problems with that. And you can have a little fun goofing off with this too if you want. And I just noticed there is a little bit of a curl at that wing tip, and it probably had to do with the fact that that wing was standing on its tip in the box, but it'll be okay. I'm not worried about it. Here's the other wing. That wing tip is square and straight, no problems there. But yeah, the wing looks good. So there's the wing. Now the fuselage. There's a couple of different options for mounting the fuselage. Now, they do actually do something very cool. I know in the Park Flyers, I kind of groused on the Super Sportster. I groused about gluing the canopy on. In this one, they leave it unglued, but there's a reason for that. And it's because they know people are going to use this one for FPV. So by leaving it unglued, you can take this little plastic canopy off, and you can use what's inside there for a pod, I'm really thinking that's what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to go ahead and put my FPV equipment inside the canopy and put the glass on. And I might cut a hole in the front and do a little ventilation on the side just so I can make sure my equipment is staying cool. Other things I've done with cameras in the past is put them right up in the nose. The only problem with that, of course, is if you auger it in, you chance risking the equipment. So this one also has options for the servos. I will probably go ahead and put them on the outside so I can service them if needed. Although I got to be honest, once you glue this thing up, that's pretty much it. There is no, when you have this thing glued together, there's no access other than this little canopy comes off. It just fell apart on me, but let's see if I can put this back together real quick. Okay, that's the access you have if something goes wrong. It's not much. I don't know if you can see down in there or not, but I couldn't get my hand in there, that's for sure. So you want to make sure you get it right before you glue it together. And I think the last time I built this plane, and I'll talk about it when I do the build review, I did not glue it together at first. I did a couple of tack welds, so to speak, just a couple drops of glue, and then I used a little bit of tape until I was sure everything was right. And when I knew everything was right and went together, then I glued the two halves together. But anyway, there's the fuselage. It is a high wing pusher, and that's that. They put the guide tubes inside for delivery and storage, so that's fine. At least we know where they are. And then this is a little structure, a brace that goes on the inside to help. It actually goes up top where the wings come together, and it provides a kind of like a crush point for where the wings get affixed to the fuselage, and that's what that's for. Then the motor firewall, and another option for the servos inside is to mount them inside. If you don't want them out in the wind, you can mount them inside, and that's what that plate's for. And then that's the firewall for the motor. So as far as the plastic bits and bobs go, 1, 2, 3, 4, these just, sorry, I'll frame a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, those just glue in. They actually give you, hey, E-Flight, look. Well, this is a 3-bladed. That's a 3-bladed. I won't be using a 3-bladed. But that's a 3-blade spinner. But hey, at least they made the effort and put a spinner in the darn thing. And then, let's see. Yep, those silly little Chinese, I hate those things. I will not be using those. I need to order some Dubros because I'm out. So those are the quick disconnects. So I'll be getting rid of those and ordering myself some Dubros. The wing spar, tiny. It's a tiny little guy, but it's fine. All it does is absorb that vertical wing loading, and that's what that's for, so no problem. Okay, that's the hardware. Last thing I'll show you are the decals. I mean, they did a nice job with them, and if you look at the pictures online, you can see plenty of examples where they use the decals. Because I do FPV with this plane, I probably won't use them. I just don't see a point in it when I'm doing FPV. Maybe I might throw a couple on there, who knows, but at least they're there. So if you like the decals, you can use those. Now let's get into the hardware a little bit. I think it's Bijoli. I'm not Italian, so maybe someone can correct me. And what's funny is it's probably Chinese equipment. So anyway, real simple. It's just a little tiny stabilizer. There is no OSD. So if you were going to ask that question, the answer is no. There's no OSD. But it's a very simple flight stabilizer and a return to home module. That's it. That's all this does. Now you might say, well, why bother? Well, one of the reasons is because as you start adding complexity to these planes, you have extra components like a camera or a power regulator or a video transmitter. Any of these things can go wrong. And if they do, and you're not... Now, I want to be careful because I don't want to get in trouble because we're flying at an AMA sanctioned field. We're supposed to be flying within line of sight. But let's say you're just pushing the envelope a little bit. Let's leave it at that. And you got your spotter and something goes wrong. You can be flying out there line of sight and still see the airplane and say, that's pretty far away, but I'm not sure which way it's turning or if it's climbing or descending. That's where a return to home feature helps out. So if any of this equipment goes wrong, then you flip the return to home and hopefully the airplane comes back. I can tell you from personal experience, it doesn't always work that way. The motor I'll be using, I had this on a foam board park flyer. This is a 2826 2200, and I think that's a 6.4 prop. I'll probably be sticking with that. I think that, if I recall, that was a pretty decent setup on this airplane. So I'll be using that motor, not the motor mount. That comes off. But I'll be using that. As far as the ESC, back to the ZTW, the Beatles 40 amp. I like these. They're working great so far. That's what I'll be using for the ESC. And because I'm not going to be flying, again, I'm not intending to go long range, but I'll be flying a little farther than the typical park circle. So I'm using a L9R. That'll give me a little bit of comfort level in going the distance. And my goggles of choice, I use the IB Crazy circular polarized mushroom, the blue mushroom antenna, and I've got an X-Air right-hand circular polarized crosshair antenna. I'm not going to get into what those are for in this video, but I do that because on the Sky Zone goggles, which I have used basically since I got started, there is dual receivers. So I use two different styles of antenna to give me two different, we'll call them dispersion patterns for my reception capabilities. How's that? And then as far as servos go, I just got a couple of these Tower Pro MG90 Metal Gear servos, or analog servos, 9 grams. I get those on Amazon for, I don't know, $10 or something like that. So those are the servos I'll be using for the plane. So there you go. There's the unbox video for the XUAV Sky Surfer. Guys, I've flown this plane before. I've had one. I miss it, you know, and I was just kind of browsing the web and I saw someone mention something. I said, oh, I remember having that plane, and I liked it a lot. So I'm glad to have one again. I will get it put together, although this series will be a little longer this time because I'm going to do some video work on this one, on the assembly. So be patient with me. I'll get some videos up of the build. I'll show you how I'm doing things. And if you've never done proximity FPV and you'd like to give it a try, hey, hit the subscribe button, follow along, and enjoy the build video as it comes out. All right? Take care, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video.